Hi there, I'm nicodehaan, and welcome to Living a Primal Lifestyle, where we explore a return to a more balanced and natural wild world.
To recover our natural health, regain our rights and freedoms, I'm Ellen DeHaan.
It's a beautiful day in Colorado, Durango right now. It is 63 degrees, high of 71 with a low of 46, and it's going to be sunny all day. So that's pretty nice.
The leaves are starting to change.
Yeah, the aspens are starting to get a little yellow now. So please subscribe to our channels, hit the follow button, hit the like button, and help our channel grow. We also post on Facebook and LinkedIn. If you hit the link below the show notes, you can maximize your nutrition with products from Amazon and Mother Earth Labs. And these are products that we use to supplement our diet. And we look at mainstream news stories about aging, anti-aging, natural health, history, climate, as well as our freedoms, and we do our own analysis. So all the topics for today's show are in the show notes listed below the video in the description. Have any questions or comments, you can reach me at nicodehaan@me.com. And this is a little subscribe thing I forgot to do, and this is the Mother Earth Lab I forgot to do. So. I remembered it all now. So let's see here where we are. Okay, we're going to start off here with an article that you can't outrun a bad diet, which is the title of our show right now.
Yeah.
And I put this on here because we've been talking about this for quite a long time.
Yeah, that really, with all the research and all the shows that you've done and all the shows we've done and everything that comes out, we find no matter what you do, food seems to be the source.
Yeah, that's for sure. So back in the 1800s, obesity was almost non-existent in the United States. Over the last century, it's become common here and in other industrialized nations, though it remains rare among people who live more traditional lifestyles.
So what changed? One common explanation is that as societies have developed, they've also become more sedentary and people have gotten less active. And the assumption then is that as a result, we burn fewer calories every day, contributing to an energy imbalance that leads to overweight gain over time, says Herman Ponzer, a professor of evolutionary biology and global health at Duke University, who studies how human metabolism has evolved.
Yeah, but in a major new study published in the Journal of PNAS, Posner and an international team of collaborators found that it's not the case. They compared the daily total calorie burn for people from 34 different countries and cultures around the world. The people involved ran the spectrum from hunter and gatherers and farming populations with low obesity rates to people in more sedentary jobs like in Europe and the United States, where obesity is widespread.
And Ponzer says, quote, surprisingly, what we find is that actually the total calories burned per day is really similar across all these populations, even though the lifestyle and activity levels are actually different.
Yeah, and that finding offers strong evidence that diet, not a lack of physical activity, is the major driver of weight gain and obesity in the modern world.
Oh, it's good to be right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so Deidre Tobias, who's an obesity and nutritional epidemiologist at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston and the Harvard Chan School of Public Health, who was not involved in the research, had the following quote: This does sort of really fly in the face of what a lot of us anecdotally assumed was driving a lot of the weight gain and obesity today.
So in the study, researchers examined data from more than 4,200 adult men and women. Study participants were given a special water to drink that contained isotopes that came out in their urine. And these isotopes allow scientists to determine exactly how much energy a person expends, not just in active movement, but also the energy it takes to keep our hearts beating, our nervous systems functioning, and of course, just to stay alive.
So when they adjusted for body size, Ponzer and his colleagues found that people from populations with higher obesity rates burned only slightly less total energy per day than those from populations that weighed less. And these differences in energy expenditure did not contribute much to the differences in obesity rates among the populations.
Yeah. Yeah, the new findings have big implications for obesity. If differences in calorie burn can explain why some countries have higher obesity rates than others, then it must be something else, and that would be the diet.
So it's 100% the diet, agrees Dr. Dariush Mozaffarian, a director of the Food is Medicine Institute at the Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy at Tufts University. And I think then the question is, what is it about the diet?
Yeah, even though he wasn't involved in the study, he says it adds to other recent research that suggests food is the biggest driver in obesity. He points out that there's been a major shift in our food supply in recent decades, which is now dominated by ultra-processed food. In a sub-analysis of the data for some of the populations, Posner and his colleagues, Ponster and his colleagues found that people in countries that got more out of their calories from ultra-processed foods tend to have more obesity and higher body fat percentages.
Now, this doesn't mean there's no reason to exercise. After all, it is good for your mental and physical health in many ways that have nothing to do with weight. But, says the article at the end, it does mean you cannot outrun a bad diet. Ponser says if we want to tackle obesity, the public health message should focus on changing what's on our plates.
Yeah, and I've often said that what you eat really makes a difference on how whether you're going to be carrying more weight or not, and your activities. Excuse me. The activities that you do create the shape of your body and the condition of your body. I hear up my nose or something. I'm not going to put that out, so it doesn't really matter. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, so, we've been saying this all along, and it pretty much the fitness industry is driving this the other way, saying that the reason that you're heavy or overweight.
You're not exercising enough.
Right. So it really has to do with body composition. So if you do work out and things like that, it's going to change the way your body looks.
Yeah, but there are plenty of people who exercise religiously but don't have big muscles or that kind of thing. And it's just everybody's different.
Well, if you look at some of those pictures that we saw with people in the 1950s.
On the beach.
On Miami Beach. And there's not a heavy person. In fact, when I went to school, it was very, very unusual to see somebody overweight. And it was usually a family that was all overweight. I remember when we were living way up north in Sudbury, we lived at at the apex of a dead-end street. And the very last house was this kid who was in one of my classes. And he was really, really heavy. But I remember walking past his house many times, and then I saw some of his family, and he had a large family. I think there was like 12 or 13 children, which was unusual too, but that's another story. But just about everybody in the family was overweight. So it was definitely the food.
Also, it tends to be more of something that's if somebody is a little bit less financially secure or doesn't have the resources, sometimes that affects the choices of food.
Sure.
And then that adds to the problems.
Yeah. And of course, they were in a lower class of economically also.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah. So that makes a difference in choices too.
Yeah, sure.
Next article is the cancer. Yeah, go ahead, read it.
This cancer-causing chemical may be lurking in your bread.
Yeah, and pretty much when we have bread, we have it from the local bakery, which is a lot different than.
Well, and not only that, but from the organic food store.
Yeah.
So it's and it's always sourdoughs.
Yeah.
Okay, so it says this article came from something called EWG.org. And it says that EWG has identified over 200 products that contain potassium bromate, including Gomez flour tortillas, Hy-Vee blueberry crisp, and Hanover baked sourdough soft pretzels, among others. The use of the additive in the United States is widespread and legal, even though it has been banned in other countries because of health concerns.
Yeah, in 1999, the World Health Organization's cancer arm, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, echoed the findings of several studies determining that potassium bromate may cause cancer in humans.
And in lab tests, animals that were exposed to potassium bromate had increased incidence of both benign and malignant tumors in the thyroid and peritoneum, which is the digestive system.
Yeah, membrane lining the abdominal cavity.
Later research found that ingesting the additive increased cancer of the animal's thyroid, kidneys, and other organs significantly.
Yeah, because of these health concerns, the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, and the European Union, among other countries, have banned potassium bromate.
And even with plenty of evidence showing the chemical's potential to harm human health, it's still legal to use in food sold in most of the United States.
Yeah, the food industry has long, and I'm assuming they mean the food industry in the United States, has long argued that potassium bromate isn't a concern in baked products because, in theory, the baking process fully converts it to potassium bromide, which is similar but does not cause cancer.
But tests in the United Kingdom found that potassium bromate remains detectable after baking with all 6 unwrapped breads, and 7 out of 22 packaged breads that were tested found to have measurable levels.
Yeah, absent federal action, California and other states are stepping up. California's Food Safety Act, enacted in October 2023, banned the manufacture, sale, and distribution in the state of foods containing potassium bromate, as well as the
propylparaben,
which is red dye number 3, and brominated vegetable.
Brominated. I don't know what a brominated vegetable is, but we don't want it.
Yeah, or BVO.
Right. Following the success of that law, 18 other states have introduced bills to regulate or ban potassium bromate, which are currently working their way through the state legislatures.
Now, in March, Utah enacted an act to ban the use in school meals of BVO.
That's the brominated vegetable oil.
Yeah, potassium bromate and the other
propylparaben,
titanium dioxide, red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, yellow dye number 6, blue dye number 1, blue dye number 2, and green dye number 3. So there's stuff going on to ban these products, which makes a lot of sense to me. It's
just for the heck of it, I'm going to look up which states. Just give me a second here.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see which states.
Meanwhile, I'll blow my nose again.
Okay.
Maybe that walk outside in the fall with all that stuff coming out of the trees is.
Well, it seems that, let's see. Let me just see. Alaska, California, Delaware, Florida, Georgia, Hawaii, Illinois, Iowa, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Vermont, Washington, and Wisconsin.
Those are all banning?
All states with legislation pending.
Okay.
To ban these things.
Yeah, well, it needs to be done. I don't see Colorado on there, does it?
Nope.
Ooh.
Well, but we have a lot of organic.
And it'd be a good idea maybe to question, where you shop, especially a bakery, and ask them if they're using these products.
And also look at the ingredients on the packages, and see what's in it.
Well, we've pretty much eliminated from our diet breads, except maybe once a week with a certain meal. We may have a little bread with oil and some spices in it and things like that. So let me just mute that.
Why didn't it mute?
I don't know. It'll stop soon. Anyway, let's go to the next article then. How different types of bread impact cancer. And this comes from the newsmedicalnet.net.
Okay.
Let me get my cursor over here so I can show.
Despite fears of acrylamide, jeez, this study reveals whole grain bread may protect against colorectal cancer, while white bread shows potential risks. So this is kind of, our experience is that I can't digest
Gluten.
gluten. So whole wheat, whole grain doesn't make any difference. It doesn't agree with me, and I swell up and get
well, we pretty much just consume sourdough bread.
So that's why we switched to sourdough, unfortunately.
Yeah, we kind of discovered that one during a trip to San Francisco. And we said
sourdough bread everywhere.
And so we tried it, and you didn't have any problem with it.
Right.
And ever since then we go, and this was like decades ago.
Right. But on our honeymoon, maybe.
Yeah. In a recent study published in the Journal of Concurrent Development in Nutrition, researchers investigated whether bread consumption increased cancer risk.
Bread is among the most consumed food in the world, and it is a nutrient-dense food that provides shortfall nutrients. However,
okay, I'll go and
deal with that, please. Okay. It can also be a source of harmful compounds formed during processing, such as polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, acrylamide, and heterocyclic amines. High exposure to acrylamide has been reported to cause cancer in animals.
let's see.
So there was a big study done, and the findings.
Bread types varied among the studies. Bread was classified as dark, whole grain, non-white, whole grain rye, whole meal, low or high fiber, whole wheat crisp, white, and other. And most data were for the colorectal cancer or breast cancer and prostate cancer. Overall, 108 HRs and MRRs and RRs and IRRs, whatever those things are.
Right, were reported, but 79.6 of them were not statistically significant.
No study reported an increase in cancer mortality associated with bread consumption.
So then, among the males in one grouping, the highest non-white bread intake quartile had a 21% lower cancer mortality than those in the lowest quartile. So the quarter. 48 outcomes were reported for colorectal cancer. Increasing the intake of whole grain rye, non-white, or whole grain bread by up to one slice a day was associated with a 4 to 12% reduction in colorectal cancer incidence. Conversely, white bread intake was more consistently associated with increased risk, particularly for rectal and colon cancers. I have a feeling that it has to do with the additives in the bread and the things that they're doing to treat it, and not so much in whether it's white or whole wheat.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. So the conclusions, the findings indicate that bread consumption is not linked to a higher cancer incidence or mortality. Nearly 90% of the outcomes showed either no association or reduced incidence mortality with higher bread intake.
Moreover, the meta-analysis of site-specific cancers showed that bread intake was not associated with prostate, breast, or colorectal cancer risk. Notably, high whole grain bread intake was associated with reduced colorectal cancer and total cancer mortality. You have to monitor your own body, be mindful of it. And if like what happens to me is that I get inflammation and bloating from eating any kind of bread other than sourdough.
Yeah.
And even the sourdough I have to limit,
Yeah, and if you're bloating, then that means there's some kind of reaction in your gut
Yeah.
to whatever the is in
Gas,
there.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then we know that the sourdough bread goes through a different process that takes out many of the problems that are associated with gluten and things like
Yeah,
that.
because it goes through a natural fermentation process.
Exactly. So we know that fermented vegetables and fruits and, of course, bread has a better way of being digested in your
Right.
body because it's kind of pre-digested
A li-
first, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of pre-digestion going on.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next article.
Yeah, next article is the scientists fed one group of people on ultra-processed food, another group whole foods, and the difference in what happened to them was wild.
That's the headline, right?
Yeah.
Okay. As the industrial food system pushes ultra-processed foods to every corner of the globe, new research shows that even seemingly healthy packaged meals may fall short of the benefits offered by whole, minimally processed foods.
Yeah, fascinating new study published in Nature Medicine dove into the real-world effects ultra-processed food have on the human body. Following a 6-month clinical trial involving 55 volunteers, researchers at the University College London found that eating minimally processed food was not only potential fuel,
Potent.
only potent fuel for weight loss, but quickly led to a healthier biomedical readings across the board. A grim indication of what's
Inexorably
become the norm in global eating. And that's really a lot of these processed foods are now being kind of hidden.
Yeah.
The first one really was like potato chips and things like that.
Mhm.
And we had a little potato chips the other day, and I
Yeah,
still
but
get a little bloated.
the potato chips it was a matter of the kind of oil that they were cooked in
That too.
also.
Yeah,
you know,
because a lot of them are using soy or canola oil.
or palm oil or, whatever. But so let's see. To run the experiment, a team of over 20 researchers split the participants into two groups, each of which followed a strict diet for 8 weeks. One group was assigned to eat only minimally processed whole foods, while the other was given the task of eating mainly hyper-processed slop.
I like that.
A little bias here. Okay. After the first diet was finished, the volunteers took a 4-week break and then switched to the other chow.
So given the direct comparison, the findings were noteworthy. Participants on the non-processed food regime burned more fat, had lower systolic blood pressure, and lower levels of glycated hemoglobin, blood sugar, essentially, compared with the processed ones.
Then zooming in a bit, the researchers found that losses in fat mass, body fat percentage, visceral fat rating, and total body water mass were significantly lower on the whole food diet, but not the ultra processed one. When I say significantly lower, in other words, there was much more burning of fat.
Yeah.
And participants on the processed diet also reported a greater number of what they called adverse events, like constipation, acid reflux, fatigue, and infections.
So volunteers surveyed that both diets were equally satisfying, likely because both trended towards healthier, seemingly foods. Both diets followed the UK government dietary guidelines, even though they reported having an easier time controlling their cravings on the non-processed diet. And that's one of the things that ultra-processed foods do. They throw other things in there to create cravings, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Comparing the two menus is fascinating on its own. Participants on the non-processed diet enjoyed meals like breakfast cinnamon and apple overnight oats, sticky barbecue ribs with smoky rice and fruit, and salmon with herb new potatoes and mixed vegetables. The snacks were stuff like blueberries, oat, nut, and seed muffins, and pasta salad.
Alarmingly, the ultra-processed group were treated to foods that on surface level look comparable. Commercial breakfast oats and fruit bars, pre-made ribs and rice with fruit snacks, and boxed salmon with potatoes and corn. And the snacks made up meal replacement drinks, plant-based yogurts, and packaged wrap oak bars.
And though definitions vary, ultra-processed food is typically identified as containing foodstuff that's rarely, if ever, used in the kitchen,
Oh.
like high fructose corn syrup and hydrogenated oil, or which have been pumped full of synthetic additives like flavorings, dyes, sweeteners, or emulsifiers.
Yeah, and it concludes here saying it's not just about individual choices at the grocery store or restaurant either. The class differences in diet are stark, with poor people forced to consume far more cheap, ultra processed junk than their affluent peers, meaning that to meaningfully improve health outcomes, the food supply needs to be restructured at a basic level.
That
Kind of what we talked about
seems to be
when,
the theme.
yeah, when we talked about that people at the end of our street that
Yeah, back in Canada,
back in Canada,
in
back in the old
the
days.
50s.
Yeah, back in the 50s. Yeah.
Okay, we have one more article here.
Yeah, this one's about seafood.
No, well, we have talked a lot over, or at least in passing over the years, about fish farms and aquaculture.
Yes.
And so this is an article that says why the most popular seafood in the U.S. is now being farmed in hundreds of indoor pools across the country.
Well, the reason, of course, is because it's easier to control.
Well,
everything.
you can't. First of all, we're depleting the natural resources at an alarming rate, and then you just can't keep up with the demand.
Well, that's certainly part of it. There's no doubt about that. And so you have to send a boat thousands of miles out to get the fish or the shrimp or the crabs or anything like that.
It's hard work.
Yes. And then to have it right next to your property, and you're able. The problem I always had with the food and the farms, whether it's fish farms or any kind of farm where you're having animals, is what you're feeding them.
What you're feeding them and how you're processing them. So if you're
that too, sure.
antibiotics and
Right.
hormones to make them grow faster.
Right.
And so let's see what it says here.
Okay.
The drive-through Triple J Farms outside St. Louis, Missouri, is pretty much what you'd expect. A long gravel road winds past fields of soybeans, oh boy, and an occasional Caterpillar construction vehicle in an expansive meadow before arriving at a red metal-sided barn. But inside, instead of being filled with typical barn accoutrements like tractors, work boots, and shovels, it's filled with shrimp. Yeah. 14 above ground pools of shrimp, to be exact, are flanked by an inordinate amount of hoses, buckets, and fans that make it possible to churn out 5,000 pounds of Pacific white shrimp every year, 700 miles from the nearest ocean.
Yeah. But it's the freshness and all unparalleled taste of his shrimp that seals the deal, along with the goofy little cooking videos I post on social media. He laughs. Not many people around here have prepared a whole head-on shrimp, so I thought it would be beneficial to show how easy it is to cook them. Clearly, his small-scale tactics are having an impact. We don't do any advertising, but people knock on our door constantly. Even when our close sign is up, they show up.
Yeah, and this is the Jeff Howell, who runs Triple J Farms.
Yeah.
So let's see what else they got here. Though shrimp farming, also known as aquaculture, meaning the water culture, is still a burgeoning industry in the U.S., where there are more than a dozen farms in places like Kentucky, Arkansas, Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska. And it's a business model that feels more necessary than novel as oceans across the world become overfished. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization reports that 57% of fish species, which includes shrimp, are harvested at maximum sustainable levels. We cannot increase our harvest from the ocean, says David Brune is a PhD and a professor in plant science and technology at the University of Missouri, Columbia. So if we're going to expand the seafood supply, aquaculture will be the only way.
Says here, despite U.S. seafood farming being recognized by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration as one of the most environmentally sustainable ways to produce food, we import 1.5 billion pounds of shrimp annually from countries including India, Thailand, Ecuador, and Indonesia. Half of the seafood the United States imports come from aquaculture, and the global aquaculture industry increases by 527% between 1990 and 2018.
So in other words, what we're importing is not fresh caught shrimp, it's aquaculture shrimp grown on a farm.
Yeah.
And that was half of it.
Yeah.
Okay, this growth has come sometimes with a steep cost. Mangrove forests, tangles of trees and shrubs that grow along the coasts in tropical and subtropical regions are often turned into shrimp farms. Ocean advocacy organization Oceana says farms built in these vital ecosystems have destroyed natural habitat for birds, mammals, and fish. Oceana also mentions pollution of coastal systems from the runoff of heavy antibiotic use, as well as human trafficking and labor violations related to the people who are manning the farms, right?
Yeah.
All tied to shrimp aquaculture.
From an environmental perspective, says Byrne, most U.S. shrimp growers are operating at zero or near zero discharge and aren't polluting a body of water, since U.S. laws don't allow for water discharge, and most, if not all, do not use chemicals or antibiotics.
Okay, so it's interesting because the fellow Howell that we talked about, who's running the shrimp farm, says he uses heterotrophic bacteria to eat the waste that the shrimp produce, converting ammonia from the waste to nitrite and nitrite to nitrate. And he says that those are there are some environmental benefits to his process, such as being able to reuse the same water for years.
Yeah, and also the nitrates you can use as fertilizer, probably.
Right. He also points to some farms he has seen that are using solar panels to offset energy consumption. And he says he's interested in exploring that idea further.
So it concludes here saying that getting your shrimp fresh, not frozen, makes a difference in the flavor and texture. And there are environmental and economic benefits that come from supporting community farm models. But for most consumers, price plays a big role in purchasing decisions. Buying local is an important consideration, but not everybody will be able to afford these shrimp.
Yeah, so apparently the fish farm shrimp is more expensive than the caught shrimp or the aquaculture shrimp in other countries.
Yeah, so they have how to shop for sustainable shrimp.
Be curious and ask for details. So if you're going to some kind of a meat market or a fish market, and you can ask, do you sell sustainable shrimp? Where and how is it caught or farmed? Just general questions about the source.
So I'm getting the point that sustainable shrimp is not wild shrimp.
Yeah, apparently. Well, no, it isn't. And the point is that
that sounds a lot better than farm.
Yeah. Well, sustainable. What you're looking for with a sustainable source is something that you can rely on. You can replenish with minimum effort. It doesn't negatively impact the environment, right, and so on. So then it says, okay, next, compare countries of origin. So look at the packaging or the signage. And generally speaking,
there's also a Seafood Watch, which is an organization that rates.
Yeah, the quality or that makes sure that the information is on there. Okay, generally speaking, wild-caught shrimp from Alaska and the U.S. West Coast are recommended, as are farmed white-legged shrimp from the U.S., Ecuador, Honduras, and Thailand.
Another label to look for is that from Marine Stewardship Council. The blue and white checkmark label is used to identify wild-caught seafood that comes from fisheries with impeccable sustainable ratings.
Wild caught from a fishery. Okay.
And then they have a whole section here where you can get farm shrimp.
local shrimp farmer near you.
Yeah.
And it has a few, you know.
And I'm sure they're going to get better at doing this kind of thing, I
Mhm.
would imagine.
Mhm.
We still would prefer probably to get the wild stuff.
Yeah, we kind of we don't eat the farmed salmon because it's fed grains
Yeah, fed
and
soil usually, soy usually, or
yeah,
other
whatever.
things.
Yeah, and also because these farmed salmon, for example, are escaping and polluting the native the wild population of salmon. So
Yeah.
we don't even have a clue what that's going to be in
Yeah.
the future. So.
Well, definitely, it's getting harder and harder to find uh, really good products in food, and you have to kind of be aware where you can get these things. Ask questions of, if you're going to a health food store, even those may have, sustainable so-called seafood. And
Mhm.
we've been staying away from seafood. Mainly, we do eat it, but we don't include it in our diet on the
We don't
week.
bring it
We
home and cook it at home.
usually not. When we do, it's very seldom, and that has to do with the water pollution, the radioactive material.
Radiation,
There's
yeah.
many different reasons, and we
Mhm.
try to stick to locally farmed uh, and
Free
sustainable,
range
free range kind
and
of. Yeah,
grass finished
yeah.
and so on.
So
Yeah.
we're doing our best, just like I guess everybody else is trying to do their best. We have noticed the huge difference over the last 20 years of how we've changed our diet to make it as healthy as possible so we don't get sick as often and things like that. So,
No, we don't get the flu. We don't, and that reminds me. I mean, this is flu season, and so it's really important to be monitoring your immune system.
yeah. Well,
And
last week we talked about quite a few things that we take on a normal basis
Mhm.
to supplement our diet.
Mhm.
And kind of hacks that we use, like methylene blue and things like that,
Mhm.
to
And
help
our
us age. Yeah,
multivitamin and then there are a couple other things like astragalus has whatever if you do start to have allergies or something going on, I
and
always feed
boost
you
your immune system a little bit.
feed you astragalus
Yeah. Getting
and
out in the sun for a few minutes a day.
Mhm.
A lot of times I'll go outside just for 10 or 15 minutes and just lay out in the sun. And,
Really.
things like that. I go for the morning walk. So things like that always help, and you can feel the difference definitely. So
Yeah,
we're
but
just trying to stay healthy, folks.
the multivitamins what's it called? Comprehensive core
Yeah. Yeah, from Mother Earth Labs.
from Mother Earth Labs really helps. It's got all the trace minerals
Yeah.
and vitamins in
Yeah,
there.
so food today is lacking a lot of the things that it used to have thousands of years ago, and just want to make sure that we get those.
And well, and one other thing I wanted to add to
Sure.
that is that your emotional well-being, your mental attitude.
That's a whole other show. But you're right.
But
Yeah.
but if one of the things there have been studies that showed that when people are A-type personalities and very driven and to succeed and so on, if they need time off, they get sick because they can't justify in their minds taking a day off.
Mhm.
And but it's also true that if you are if you're sad or depressed or anxious, that you're more susceptible to the flu, let's say.
Well, because then the stress level
The
is higher.
stress level is
Yeah.
high and you're not it opens the door for things like that for your
Sure.
immune system and it suppresses your immune system. So
Listening to the daily news
yeah,
could
don't
do the
do
same
that.
thing. Yeah. Things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so it's important to stay aware of the fact that if you're not feeling up to par, if you've had trauma, if you've had drama, drama and trauma, uh, you need to be aware of that. You need to take a little extra on the immune system
Yeah.
boosting side.
And of course, we're not saying that exercise isn't great. We need to keep active in that, and that changes your whole body composition.
Well,
It also
yeah,
takes the stress off.
it
Also.
helps so much with your mental attitude.
Yeah. So,
Just take the dog for a walk, or
but like the articles say, you can't outrun a bad diet. So everything really starts with obtaining that really good diet. So you have to really do your own research and find out what products you need to get. And, you know, we've gone more carnivore simply because they're spraying everything. And the cow is just one more step in processing
detoxifying.
detoxifying for us. So we think that's a pretty good method. But you know, you got to do your own research and make up your own mind, and you'll figure it out, hopefully. Anyway, that's pretty much the show for today.
That's it.
Okay, thanks for sticking around, folks.
We'll see you soon. Be well.
Bye bye now.